What's going on, everybody? Teach back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my Week 10 NFL Power Rankings. So we are in a little bit of a different setup here, but help me out real quick. Do you like the green screen versus this box? Be curious to have your thoughts. But anyways, today I'm going to run you through my Week 10 Power Rankings, going through all the latest results and kind of give you my latest take on each and every team. Let's waste no time and start jumping right into it. Houston Texans, battled hard on Thursday night against the Philadelphia Eagles, but ultimately, still a team that's not necessarily ready to win yet. So encouraging to see them be able to battle, and Dameon Pierce looks fantastic. It was good to see that interior of the offensive line be able to move the line of scrimmage like that. So some things to be excited about if you're a Texans fan. Panthers, that first half from PJ Walker might be one of the worst halves of football I've seen this year. I'm kind of glad he's still going to be starting on Thursday night, just to see more of PJ Walker. But yeah, that game just kind of deteriorated really quickly. And sometimes just you're a bad team going against a good team, right? It's like the Panthers have, for the most part this year, been a pretty good run defense team, and the Bengals have not been able to run the ball all that efficiently whatsoever. But for whatever reason this Sunday, both those, priors just kind of broke, and that kind of worked against the Panthers, and they started to fall behind. It was 35-0 at half, and there's only so much you can do from that point onward. So then we get to the Bears, and hey, Justin Fields, anytime you break a rushing record that was previously held by Michael Vick, you're doing something right. So that's an encouraging sign, and you see a couple of looks towards Chase Claypool. I'm interested to see what he adds to that offense. But the run game is the team's identity, and what Fields can do. You see the 4.4 speed fully on display. So tough going against maybe the most efficient offense in the league right now in Miami, but they went blow for blow in a lot of ways with that, elite, super efficient offense. So certainly things to be excited about. Now it just takes, fixing up that defense. Still got to find some more pieces for Fields, but you can see this team is competitive, and you can see Fields is definitely that guy. You just need some help around him. Then we get to the Commanders. I'd honestly maybe even flip the Bears and the Commanders. I was a little more optimistic and a little more excited about what I saw from Chicago versus Washington. The Commanders, you take away that, that BS touchdown for Curtis Samuel. I'm sorry, if a referee interrupts a play like that, that was easily at least a PBU. Like if Cameron Bynum doesn't have a referee run into him and didn't put his hands up, it's hitting him in the helmet. If he puts his hands up, it's an interception. So play like that, there's got to be replay of down, kind of like when there's offsetting penalties. I've seen plenty of people say that on Twitter, and other podcasts I listen to said the same thing. So not an original thought, but I actually had a buddy, my co-host for the Hurry Up Offense, JT Creed, was there. So I was texting him about that, and I was like, dude, there's got to be a way to cancel that out. Anyways, outside of that play, it was not pretty for that Washington offense, and kind of hoping we get to see Sam Howell at some point, just to know what he looks like, I want to find something new about him versus something I already know. Taylor Heineke is not all that great. Steelers are actually on bye, but they get nudged down as the Lions move up 4 spots. 31 was kind of harsh for Detroit, but they were underperforming, if we're being fair. So they were at 31 for good reason, and nice win. And, I didn't touch that game from a betting perspective, but thinking back in hindsight, of course, hindsight's 2020, but that was the game, right? Like, the Lions, you look at their secondary woes, and, Amani Oruwariye has really taken a mean step back. Akuta's been exciting, but that secondary has been a huge issue. And also, the pass rush, that's a defense that needs more talent in general. But that being said, you look at how the Packers have struggled to move the football, and specifically through the air. That was the exact game where, they're not going to be able to take advantage of a weakness of Detroit, so therefore the Lions were kind of live. Now, granted, 3.5 point spread was pretty close. That's as close as I remember a Packers-Lions game being in quite some time, at least probably the last 3 to 5 years. So, it was already kind of accounted for in the line, but, Lions money line bettors, congratulations, you won out pretty big this weekend. Then they get the Colts down a handful of spots. Look, Sam Ehlinger that was tough. Now, granted, we say this all the time, young quarterbacks against Bill Belichick, that's a huge mismatch, so don't want to hold it against the kid too much. We'll see more next week. But, obviously they fire Frank Reich. I don't want to say that's a mistake, because he might have had, a say in bringing in a Carson Wentz, bringing in a Matt Ryan, and those types of moves didn't work out, right? So that's tough. But that being said, I have nothing but respect for Frank Reich, and I think he's one of the best play callers in the league. So I think minimum, I think he really could have a Dan Quinn type of, resurgence. Give him 2-3 years as an OC, and then I could see a world where he has any head coaching job he wants, kind of waiting for him. Now, granted, Dan Quinn has kind of adapted with the times. I don't know if Frank Reich really, needs to do that. But, you could always get better, right? So I totally think Frank Reich could have that Dan Quinn type of, return to glory in a lot of ways. So excited to see what his future looks like. And then I guess we're going to see what Jeff Saturday looks like as an NFL head coach. And Jeff Saturday was a hell of a player, and, as close to Peyton Manning as, many of his Colts teammates could possibly get. So I guess that's what Jim Irsay's looking for, the return to that era. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. That's gonna be interesting. And then who's calling plays on both sides? Yeah, a lot of question marks I need answered. And yeah, this week them and the Raiders. Wow, just an absolute privilege that game's gonna be. Then we get to the Jags, anyways. Moving on, up 3 spots. Hey, solid win. And it was pretty ugly there in the first half. I mean, getting torched by Davante Adams, but they hung tough. And Trevor Lawrence, battled through it. Good ball placement this week. His accuracy's kind of been touch and go at points this season, but I think, ball placement was a lot better this past weekend. And, Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk, those types of playmakers are making big plays. So I still think they need to add a little bit more. Maybe that's just the Calvin Ridley move, and we'll get to see that next year. But it's good to see those weapons around Trevor Lawrence help elevate what that offense can potentially be. But anyways, on to 17 through 24. The Broncos were on bye, but they're up a spot just because of the reshuffling. Not that I am crazy about the Broncos, but good defense. Next up, Cardinals down a spot, and my lock of the week on the hurry-up offense was Seattle moneyline. I kind of saw this happening, but to talk about the Cardinals, it's more of the same. I mean, the offense is discombobulated. Hey, congratulations, though. The one bet that I missed in that game was I had Seahawks first quarter, and for the first time in 14 games, Arizona scored on their opening drive. So a step in the right direction, but everything after that was pretty ugly. And, the Zaven Collins pick six, cool to see a first-round pick making a play, but other than that drive, that defense, especially as the game went on, just started to get more and more beat up, right? And not even like injury-wise, just like Seattle was exacting a toll on them. And by the time they got to the fourth quarter, they had no answer for the Seahawks. So tough scene there. The Cardinals just aren't a good football team. Sorry. Browns were also on bye, but they're up a couple spots. They're hanging around, and once they get Deshaun Watson back, they're going to be a dangerous team. Falcons, Raiders, and Saints all lost, but I'm going to keep them here just because I like all three of those teams more than, maybe the Browns, but, they're on a bye. I'm not going to shift them up 5 spots from not playing this week. So I'm going to keep the Saints, Raiders, and Falcons where they are. I think they're about right there. The Saints just, 2 weeks ago destroyed and wiped the Raiders off the face of the earth. Maybe I can move Vegas down, but I still respect the talent on that roster, even if they're not well coached. Kind of on that Josh McDaniels. 3 blown leads this year of 17 plus points. The rest of the league is 2. Shout out to CBS Sports for that. But also, the Raiders have done that 5 times in franchise history coming into this year. So, yeah, I'm last week on the hurry up offense. I said I'm not sure if I see Derek Carr in the the black and silver next year. I'm not sure if I see Josh McDaniels on the sideline. It's getting rough. I have a couple other Josh McDaniel nuggets if you want them down below in the comment section. So, anyways, I mean those 3 teams, they feel about 21 through 19. I think they're in a good spot. Packers down another place. I mean, like I said earlier, they just don't have the weapons to take advantage of that bad of a Detroit secondary. That says a lot. That speaks volumes, right? And then you look at, Rashawn Gary's out for the year now, torn ACL. Eric Stokes is in crutches in the game. It sounds like Aaron Jones is going to be okay, but on top of this team not having, that dynamic playmaker that they're missing with Davante Adams, they just are now getting banged up. I don't know. It's just breaking all the wrong way, and we'll see. I mean, if Rodgers doesn't hang it up, I don't think he's back in Green Bay. Like, I know we did this all last offseason, so I don't want to get too carried away with myself, but I don't know. I just can't see it. I mean, expressions like that picture and then stuff you see on the sidelines, I just don't think he wants any more of it. Like, I don't know what the destinations are. Washington, New Orleans, we'll wait and see, but that kind of makes for an exciting offseason to look forward to. Then we get to the Rams. Yeah, I mean, this team's just, outside of Cooper Kupp, that offense can't move the ball. The offensive line's just an absolute mess right now. 8 different starting line combinations in 8 games. Need I say more? I mean, that's brutal. That one big play to Cooper Kupp, I give Matt Stafford that. It's just a cover 3 defense he's looking at. Looks the safety left, and then Kupp also running a vertical route up the seam. He's there on the right. So you basically had 2 vertical routes against the cover 3, force the safety to pick. Stafford looks left, trusts his guy to the right, and there's your one touchdown of the day for the Rams. It's just that offense isn't the same. So, yeah, and then you get to the defensive side, and yeah, they have a great performance for most of the game, but then that last drive, the Bucs are just picking on Darion Kendrick, who is this cornerback taken in the 6th round, ran a super slow 40, and yeah, I mean, no matter who he was lined up against, the ball was going there. And then Cade Otton actually come up with a couple of nice plays. We'll talk more about the Bucs there, but yeah, just this is not your reigning Super Bowl champion team anymore. And then furthermore, the Bucs got a win, but they are not the same team from 2 years ago that won a Super Bowl. That was kind of a fun story. The last 2 Super Bowl winners going head to head, and both are under 500 coming into that game. Things that I couldn't have expected. But give credit to Tom Brady doing a Tom Brady-like type of drive, and again, Cade Otton. I've been thinking, maybe this team just really needs that tight end presence. Maybe Brady's really missing a Gronk, and maybe Cade Otton can kind of be that dude. That being said, there's still offensive firepower everywhere. And then when you hear quotes from Byron Leftwich saying, big Steelers fan, former Steelers quarterback Byron Leftwich, and did some great stuff at Jacksonville. I was hoping he would get the Jags job. So when he says stuff like this, it's one of those things where it's like, man, maybe Doug Peterson was the exact right way to go. But it's not about rush yards, it's about rush attempts. And it's like, okay, well, that makes sense when you have Derrick Henry in the backfield, maybe, but also Derrick Henry racks up yards. And then why would we choose a less efficient, course of action versus a more efficient, even just from yards per carry versus yards per attempt? You're already at a disadvantage there, and you're not running at a high yards per carry clip. What are we doing here? So, and you have the GOAT at quarterback. That offense is bewildering to me. But yeah, it was good to see Vita Vea make a couple plays, a couple snacks this week. So some things to hopefully build upon for the Bucs, and I think their bye week's actually very soon. So hopefully they can kind of find some momentum. That coaching staff just needs to get it together. Titans, they're down 5 spots, and that's kind of harsh. I just never really thought of them as a top 10 team. So it was kind of nice how the quote-unquote board played out here for me with these power rankings. They're down to 15. I think that's about right. But they hung tough with Kansas City, right? And I think with the physicality that game was played with, there wasn't a whole lot of, there were penalties. There were plenty of penalties, but a lot of them were procedural. Felt like a lot of contact was, letting be had. So I think that definitely caters to Tennessee and what they want to do. I think they are one of the more physical teams in the league, and when they get to exude that strength, it makes them that much better of a football team. And then, Derrick Henry's doing his thing, right? And, loved the over 20.5 yard, attempts, but he was honestly too efficient, which if you're a Titans fan and you're not worried about betting, that's an awesome stat. And even Dontrell Hilliard, I've been kind of pleased with what I've seen over the last 2 to 3 weeks out of him. So we got a nice rotation working there. And then, Malik Willis, much improved from last week, in my opinion. I know the stats are not very good, right? He's like 6 of 15 passing. But, that ball to Chris Conley up the sideline, that's one of those Malik Willis throws that he has on tape, from Liberty, and that's what got him into Auburn or before that. He has that type of potential, and this week they did a ton more with his legs. So again, the passing's not pretty, but at least this week they maximized his value as a runner. So that's fantastic. And I think honestly, just the read option stuff, forcing a defender to account for Malik Willis. Not that Derrick Henry needs any help, but that's one less guy who's coming in from the backside trying to catch up with Derrick Henry. So yeah, I think I'm excited to see where this offense goes moving forward. They still need. That wide receiver position still looking rough. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully there's just some improved play there, and then hopefully they continue to get more and more healthy on the defensive side. But that unit's really good, especially when they can play physical. And, I kind of like how they handled Travis Kelce, a lot of different guys on him. I don't know. I like the way Vrabel coaches up that side of the ball. Makes a ton of sense for him. A linebacker. Giants on a bye week. They're going to stay here. Still surprised that we're now in the back half of the season and the Giants from the top 16, though. It's kind of a fun story. And the Jets just up and over him. Hey, that was a division win I did not see coming. Actually, it cost me one of my parlays. I'm done talking about betting now. I apologize. But, the Jets showed a ton of fight there. And, they may not be the tandem that you would think of, but without a doubt, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed have been the best cornerback tandem in the league this year, which, again, you would think it's someone else. But it's been those two. And, you saw it this week. They were fantastic. And, taking away Stephon Diggs is no easy task. And, he still got his statistically, but when push came to shove late in that game, you didn't see a whole lot of 14. And I think they were wearing white, but you didn't see a whole lot of Stephon Diggs. And, those 2 touchdowns for Josh Allen, I didn't think about it in the moment, but I was like, 2 rushing touchdowns. That's kind of weird. He could do that. But part of that, in retrospect, is like, yeah, well, no one was getting open. So he had to run, and he's just a freak athlete, and he's a good runner, so he could do that type of stuff. And then the Jets kind of keyed in on that, made an adjustment in halftime, and, hey, Zach Wilson, between fourth quarter of this game and fourth quarter against Pittsburgh, there's some, big-time clutch moments now he's put under his belt. So I still don't think it's great, but he's making enough plays, and, in crunch time, he's been serviceable. He's been solid. He's engineering long drives. So something, if you're a Jets fan, to build upon. Your hopium can be added on there with Wilson's play this week. And then the Patriots, it's kind of one-sided. The defense was not going to be that was not going to be fair. Bill Belichick, that defense against Sam Ehlinger, and that it was. But dude, Mac Jones, this team, I truly don't think of them as a top 12 team, but they did, just beat the Jets in pretty handedly fashion 2 weeks ago. So give them respect there. I don't totally bake in head-to-head matchups, but it's still fresh in my mind. I did give the Patriots the nudge there. But yeah, Mac Jones, man. And everything that you liked about Mac Jones as a prospect is gone. I don't know what happened. Honestly, his accuracy was one of the things I loved about him. His ball placement's not been all that great. His processing ability, basically everything he does above the shoulders in so many different ways, was what separated him from all those other guys, other than maybe, Trevor Lawrence, who was the number 1 overall pick. So it was like, where'd that go? He's not the cerebral processor. He's making bad decisions still, which, last year it's like, yeah, well, he's a rookie, so you can forgive it. This year it's just like, okay, is this a habit? Now I'm concerned. So and the inaccuracy, I just don't know what Mac Jones has turned into. He is just not the same guy we saw in the first 8 games last year. Seahawks up a spot, dude. I love the Seattle team. They continue winning me a lot of money, so I respect them for that. But also Geno, after that pick six, like, I was so happy to see how he handled that. Back-to-back touchdown drives, and then, of course, it's Kenneth Walker punched in the end zone. And this week, actually, I had just talked about it, maybe last Power Rankings last week or Hurry Up Offense from last week, where I was like, the thing with Seattle that, I'm kind of concerned about, a lot of times when they're moving the ball in the air, it's chunk plays, moving it 20, 25 yards at a time or more. This week, a whole lot more of the short and intermediate stuff, and that obviously resulted in the screen being picked off by Zaven Collins. But nonetheless, outside of that pick six, they did a good job, like being able to pass the ball underneath, and on top of a really efficient run game, especially as the game progresses and Kenneth Walker just wears down defenses. So love where this offense is at, and the defense is getting enough plays right. Tariq Woolen went mano a mano against DeAndre Hopkins and won a few times. That's amazing. I thought this was going to be the week. If that was the matchup, I was, as much as I did take Seattle money line, I was like, yeah, if it's D-Hop having Tariq Woolen spin and turn around and flip his hips, that could be rough. That's not really his strength. It's not, look at his 3-code. That's not really where he stands out. But he held his own. He did a great job. And, Uchenna Nwosu continues to have a great season. He's been, their biggest winner when it comes to pass rush win rate. But they had some timely defense, timely sacks. And, I don't know. This team just keeps getting it done. And a ton of credit to Pete Carroll. And then the Dolphins back to the top 10. I mean, this offense is insane. Yeah, the defense needs to get better. I'm excited to see once, Bradley Chubb's fully integrated in the mix. But yeah, that defense giving up 32 to Chicago, as much as that makes me excited for Chicago, that kind of does make me worry about where the defense is heading moving forward. So a little bit of a wait and see, but that is a potential, that's kind of a little caution flag I have going up right now. Could potentially become a red flag once we get later in the season. But, I mean, at the same time, Tua's dropping dimes left, right, and center. He had that, game against Pittsburgh where he should have thrown 4 interceptions. We haven't really had, the ball placement inaccuracies, turnover-worthy type of stuff since then, which is an encouraging sign. And then to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I mean, need I say more? And then also, can we talk about the addition of Jeff Wilson? So glad I still have him in a couple of my fantasy leagues. Had to contemplate cutting him or Elijah Mitchell. Feels like I made the right decision. We'll see, though. But, Jeff Wilson out-touched Raheem Mostert. I think Jeff Wilson's going to be the guy moving forward. So if he's available in your fantasy leagues, I highly recommend you pick up Jeff Wilson. Then we get to the Cincinnati Bengals. Dominant win. Joe Mixon with 5 tutties. I mean, I actually went against him in fantasy. In the league I care most about, I went against him. So rest in pieces. That was a little tough. But that being said, I mean, this was an awesome sign to see Cincinnati be able to win a game like that without Jamar Chase, right? So now you're 1-1 in this time period where you're living without Jamar Chase. And for an offense that's been so inept running the football, this was exactly the game you wanted. Now, the question is, what is Zach Taylor? What's the lesson he learns here? Is he going to start pounding the rock with Mixon, trying to give him 25 carries and then X amount of catches out of the backfield? I'd rather still see it be Joe Burrow's offense and him at the hand of it or him at the wheel of it. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see there. I'm excited to see though. But then we get into the top 8. Chargers. You could maybe flip the Bengals and the Chargers, but they're kind of in that same ballpark. Good AFC teams, but I still have question marks moving forward. Zach Taylor, and then for the Chargers, like you sweated out a 20-17 game. Yeah, it was in Atlanta, and Falcons covers, one of my plays from the Hurry Up Offense last week. Liked it. But that being said, that game was, not all that pretty. And if not for Khalil Mack just ripping away from Drake London, that felt like such a huge turning point in that game. If the Falcons find the end zone there, are we talking about a Chargers win here? I'm not sure we are. So, still some question marks. Brandon Staley after the game saying, Justin Herbert's finally healthy. Cool. Why, makes you contemplate why he was out there and playing. I guess he was, fine enough to go at it. Cool. And also, there's going to be a huge step down from him to Chase Daniels, so that definitely plays a factor in it. But 100-plus yards for Josh Palmer and a couple big plays from DeAndre Carter. This team needs their top 2 receivers, and they still need more. Like, Palmer and Carter, I think, are fine as your 3 and 4, but when they're your 1 and 2, that's where the problem arises. So, hopefully this is just an experience that makes those players better, and that way when you get Mike Williams and Keenan Allen back, those guys are just that much better as number 3 and 4. That's what you can hope. Also, Gerald Everett continues to be a really nice player in this offense. So, big offseason addition there for the Chargers. And again, their defense came up with some timely plays and living life without J.C. Jackson. But, Khalil Mack's ripping it away from Drake London. Plays like that are happening. So, ton of credit there to the Chargers defense. This was the first week where I was like, okay, there we go. That's the type of stuff I wanted to see, especially from a turnover creation standpoint. Then we get the 49ers. They were on bye, as were the Cowboys. So they're both staying put. The Ravens, nice win on Monday Night Football. The line kept moving towards the Saints, which made me a little nervous, but yeah, the Ravens were by far and away the better team. In the defense, creating turnovers, getting a ton of pressure on Andy Dalton. Calais Campbell turned back the clock about 5 years. awesome showing there. If you're a Ravens fan, you're happy from so many different perspectives. No interceptions for Lamar Jackson. They didn't really force, they didn't have to move the ball through the air, which I feel bad for people who bet, the Isaiah Likely, receiving props. He only had the one catch for 24 yards, but I think they understood, like, no Rashad Bateman. We don't have a guy who necessarily wins on the outside full time, We don't have that dude. Deshaun Jackson also in the mix, but that being said, even on that Isaiah Likely touchdown, it's him rolling right. It looks like it's a QB power right, and then Likely just sneaks out, and then Lamar hits him. I think you're going to see a lot of that, especially with no, Rashad Bateman, until they figure out what that, passing game's going to look like. If they're playing from ahead, it's going to be run, 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 and then they're going to build a pass play that, starts off looking like a QB power, that type of stuff. And that's honestly where Greg Roman, as a play caller, is at his best. So it kind of makes sense from a few different perspectives, from where the roster's at, as well as, playing to your OC's strengths, as well as Lamar Jackson's. Then the Vikings, that game was an absolute sweat. But again, that touchdown to Curtis Samuel, I'm getting irritated thinking about it. But ton of credit to Kirk Cousins. I mean, this game's at 1 o'clock, but otherwise, double-digit deficit going to the fourth quarter at his former team's, home stadium. He showed some grit, and he made some plays. And that ball to Dalvin Cook, end zone, that was a nice play. And it was a great catch from Dalvin Cook, too. So adversity shown by the Vikings, and Za'Darius Smith continues to be awesome. And even on top of, while I'm talking about Za'Darius Smith, on top of, that ref running into Cameron Bynum, there was this face mask call in the fourth quarter that, dude, it was pretty clear they grabbed him by, the jersey. So, yeah, some questionable officiating here. Actually, again, going back to JT, we took down 22 players and 2 refs, and that's kind of what it felt like for the Vikings. So, a ton of adversity. Winning a game on the road is never easy, and, hey, now you're 7-1. That really speaks to how this team just has a knack at winning close games. Then we get the Bills sliding down a couple spots. Tough loss to the Jets, but I don't think that's going to be the norm. Really, I think what's going to come out of this is like 3 weeks in a row now where it's like, hey, Josh Allen's starting to be a little too careless with the ball. Like, I know you're Superman and everything. You can do a lot of cool stuff. And against the Packers, it was kind of like he was trying to spike it a handful of times. And, like one of the interceptions from Jair Alexander, he just basically slides underneath it. And it was just Allen trying to throw it behind somebody into the dirt. But Jair Alexander just read the play. And, he's one of the best cornerbacks in football. Got another pick this week. But that being said, I think with a defensive-minded head coach, Sean McDermott's going to reel that stuff in. So I think next week against Minnesota, a matchup between my number 3 and 4 teams in my power ranking, that's going to be a fun one. We'll talk about that on the Hurry Up offense for sure. But that being said, that's going to be a fun battle. But I think Josh Allen's going to be in P's and Q's, but I also think he's going to be playing pissed. So look out, Vikings. And then we get the Eagles up a spot. I know they're still the last undefeated team, but I think if it was the Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl, Chiefs would be favored. I think they'd still be laying at least 2.5 points, maybe even more. And, kind of talking about these two teams, it wasn't pretty necessarily for either one, but the Eagles really turned it on in the second half, and it was good to kind of see them recover from their first true test. I know the Lions in the end of the first game of the season, kind of made it interesting, but this was the first one where, like, midway through a game where it was like, okay, the Eagles are not dominating somebody. They're not running away with this one. So how do they respond to that? And I think we saw them with an appropriate bounce back, So that was an encouraging sign to see. Makes me feel that much better about that team. And then for the Chiefs, especially you jump out 9-0, and it's like, okay, Kansas City's going to run away with this. But then you get, down 17-9, and it's like, okay, this is the exact wrong spot you want to find yourself against Tennessee. But then Pat Mahomes kind of takes over that game with his legs, right? He had like 450-plus passing yards, and then, the scramble touchdown, the 2-point conversion. He's hard to stop. He's a machine, man. So, Kansas City doing what Kansas City does on the offensive side, and then just enough stops on the defensive end. And I'm intrigued, not intrigued necessarily, but I'm excited to see where that defensive line goes. Chris Jones is still having another fantastic season, one of the best in his awesome career. Carlos Dunlap making just enough plays. Like, I don't know, they just have enough playmakers now. They're starting to get healthy. Trent McDuffie's back into the fold, and how much does that add to that secondary? I don't know. The Chiefs are just one of the best teams in the league. That's why I got my number 1. But let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you think about my Week 10 power rankings? Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? Who's your favorite team? Where do you think they should slide in at? Love to have your thoughts. It's a conversation. I respond to every comment, so let's talk about it down below. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. It helped me out a ton. If you're around here, want to see more football content, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teej. I'm signing off.